First, I'm going to tell you that coming up in July, we will have several board positions open, so there will be a call for nominations coming out in the next, in the next couple of months. There'll be a Northern California board rep, a Southern California board rep, an Arizona board rep, and then the second VP, which should be a Southern California representative, and also one corporate board member. So pretty big election that we will be having in July. If you're interested, make sure you respond to the call for nominations when we get that out. Look for that in one of the SWAAAE alerts. Today we have the pleasure of voting on two positions. They are the AAA Director Board Representative for the Southwest Chapter. It will be a really close call, I'm sure, on the election because we got Scotty as the sole interest in that particular position. So, Scotty, where are you? I know you're in here. I heard your voice. Would you like to say something? Okay, come on up.
Never miss an opportunity, right? So, I realize I'm running unopposed, but nonetheless, I've had the privilege of representing you for several years as your representative or one of your representatives to the AAAE Board of Directors. So having said that, I'd appreciate, of course, your vote today so that I can continue being your representative on the AAAE board. Thanks.
So the other position that we have that we get to vote on today is the chapter's representative put forth to the national chapter for the secretary-treasurer position. This is a person that goes on to ultimately run the national organization. And again, it will be a very close election, I'm sure, with the one candidate on there, which would be Todd McNamee. And Todd, if you'd like to come up and say a word. Do it into this. It's not about you. It's not recording.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe I'll be a little more careful about what I say. So first, I just want to say I appreciate very much the chapter's support over the years on the SWAAAE board, as a past president of SWAAAE, the 2 terms that I've served on the national board, and the last few attempts to get into the chairs of AAAE. I very much enjoy participating in a leadership role, advocating for our issues. There's a lot of them this year, as there is really every year. I've got a strong relationship with AAAE staff, so I'd certainly support the development and support of aviation professionals and make sure that they continue in that role. Todd Hopley and his team are doing phenomenal things. Maples mentioned a lot of it in her presentation yesterday. Just the scholarships alone last year was $191,000. So excellent organization. I'm proud to be a part of it. And so with that, I would be honored to serve as a SWAAAE rep in the chairs of AAAE. Thank you.
Did you all mark your ballots? All right. Anybody come around to pick them up? Do we? I guess I'll be back in a few minutes to tell you who the elected winners are. Yeah.
Executive Director's Report. Kathy, whenever you are done collecting ballots.
I will keep this short and sweet. There's a membership report included in your packet, page 5. So this report shows the current number of members, where we are this year compared to where we were this time last year. We currently have 467 members. This time last year we had 466. We currently have 116 airport group memberships and 51 corporate group memberships. That's all.
That was the best executive director's report we've ever had. Okay, financials, Gary.
Thank you. If you take a look at their balance sheet, couple things I want to point out. First thing is under office equipment. You'll notice that there's a cost of $17,000. That's actually the new technology that was just purchased that we're utilizing. So that was incorporated into this balance sheet. And in the liabilities and equity section under accounts payable, there is a charge of $3,900 for, and that is actually KCA's management fees and office expenses that we're planning on paying in February. So I wanted to point those two out. If you go to the P&L, just want to point out the winter conference annual budget was $84,000. As of December 31st, it's anticipated to be $116,000 in income, which is $16,000 above what we expected. That will be reflected in the third quarter P&L. And we also received that check for $2,100 for the Northwest chapter that will be reflected in the third quarter as well. Any questions on the financials? Thank you.
If you would please turn to page 13 in your packet, we have an amendment to the bylaws that we need to vote on. In section 6, you'll note the area that is kind of struck through. This changes the requirements for the CAE, and all it does is change the bylaws to match the new application, or the new CAE application, which we changed several months ago through a separate board process. So please review that, and whenever, yes? All right. And all in favor? Any opposed? Great. Please turn to page 35. Terry. It was you, right, Terry? You seconded that? You're in big trouble. What was it, Scott? Todd. I heard it come from over here. Todd seconded. You good? Okay. Please turn to page 35 and see policy decision 15-14. Briefly, this change to the policy decision kind of revolves around several discussions that we've been having at the board level, and all it does is clarify that current SWAAAE members that are dues-paying voting members of SWAAAE that move into a state position or other position on this list has to still pay dues to retain their voting rights. And if you take a minute to review that language there whenever you're ready, I would love to have a motion to approve that. Yes. Oh, yes, members. Current members. Is that the one? Okay, I caught that as well. I had a motion, I believe, from Scotty with the one change there. Is there a second? And all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Next, we'll go into the AAAE update. And I know you, again, got a lot of this throughout the week. I just want to point out a couple of highlights, and then I'll call on those others that were either at the last board meeting at the Issues Conference. I mentioned the donation by Dave Barger of $100,000 to this AAAE Foundation. The 2016 focus areas, as described by Todd Hopley, were these. Obviously, we have the focus on reauthorization, so that'll be a big push for them from now through March. The app-based training initiative, which comes out of the innovation accelerator that AAAE has been building up over the last several years, is up and running. If you haven't seen it, you can go to their website, check it out. So they're going to continue to revise that program as necessary, but it's really become kind of the go-to app for all of the TNCs out there. UAS is an ever-changing dynamic issue. It'll be a top shelf for AAA's 2016 focus, and as well as mobile delivery of training solutions and, of course, growth of the foundation. This might be a good time for a plug on Contractile. I did want to mention that Contractile membership still grows. It's 253 towers in 46 states. Contractile handle 28% of operations. And there you go. Anything else?
U.S. Contract Tower Association AAAE board meeting starts at 12:30 today. Spencer Dickerson will be here. Actually, we have an offsite event, and tomorrow is actually when the board meeting starts. But if you have a contract tower at your airport or in your airport system, like many of us do, please consider joining the U.S. Contract Tower Association board. It's not election-based. It's just if you're interested to be a part of it, let Spencer Dickerson at AAAE know, and we'd be happy to have additional people join the board. It's a good group of people. We're always having to get involved with all the legislative affairs issue, meeting with your respective delegations, and continuing to fight because the FAA still has this on their watch list as a line item that they'd like to delete. Right now we're in pretty good shape. It's fully funded throughout this year, but we just don't know what to expect going forward. So if there's any questions I can answer on U.S. Contract Tower Association, please let me know, or check with Spencer Dickerson at AAAE.
If people are in town, can they attend the board meeting?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't see why not. I think Spencer would be happy to have anyone.
Okay.
But I can't answer that question.
Okay, great. Yes, sir.
Cost-benefit analysis program, protecting contract in the event of ATC privatization, as well as AIP eligibility, removal of the cap for contract tower development. So all in all, a good program and good success, and Spencer sends his thanks to those who helped with that process. And please do, if you have the opportunity, please support the contract tower program with your elected officials in Washington.
Great, thank you. Are there others in the room that could offer some comments on the AAAE update?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chad Makowski with Sky Harbor. I was also at the conference in Maui, one of those unfortunate few that had to go to Maui this year. A couple other things that Todd Hopley mentioned. He said the association's really focused on early retiring a lot of their current and future financial commitments, a lot of their debt. That's put the association, the National Association, in a much healthier position. Now they're looking at ways to reinvest into the membership, and one of the things that they've done is $100 membership store credit for accredited airport executives as another incentive to become accredited. They are hiring this year a membership engagement officer, so they're really focused on trying to drive value into the association and get membership. They've even talked about potentially in future years doing voluntary dues just as a way to attract new members and to provide existing members with a little bit of relief. So those are some of the initiatives on the national level there. The foundation is starting a new Women in Aviation Scholarship, so that's something that they really want to promote this year for anybody that would be interested in that or know somebody who might be interested. They are also looking at co-funding internships at airports in each region. So if you don't have an internship program, this might be a way to kind of put your toe in the water, if you would, to encourage, again, youth to get involved in aviation. And then again, as Joe had just mentioned, the reauthorization bill, it appears, has been released in the T&I committee, Schuster's committee today. So we should be hearing a lot more about that this week. So I think that covers it for me. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Scotty.
One last plug. You heard this during the presentation of membership the other day, but AAA has a variety of committees, and anybody is eligible to be part of one of those committees, if nothing else, to listen in on the discussions. So if you have an interest in getting involved in that, all you need to do is go to the AAA website, go to the tab that says Community, and then it'll give you the list of all the committees. And quite frankly, being on the committees, you get the information that's coming out quickly, and you can realize, based on what you hear, what AAA is actually doing for us in the industry. I currently sit on the Operations Planning and Safety Committee. I sit on the subcommittee dealing with UAS under that. I'm also on the Military and Industrial Airports Committee. And so it's really very rewarding. So I would highly recommend and encourage you, if you have an interest and you have the time, they do telephone calls no more than an hour, about once a quarter or once a month, depending on what's going on in the situations that they're involved in. But do look into that and get yourself onto one of the committees. If you have any questions about that, let me know. I'll be more than happy to work with you and get you plugged in. That's it, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes, Danette.
I didn't want to repeat what everyone else said, but I did want to add that another item of discussion in the industry happens to be the discussion about the pilot shortage. That was also brought up at the AAAE meeting, and even Dave Barger from JetBlue, former CEO of JetBlue, brought that up. So obviously the airlines are starting to think along those lines, which is good news because less and less people are transitioning out of the military into the airlines, which was a natural pipeline at one time. So they're really looking into the civilian routes as far as how to develop a pipeline for pilots. So that was very interesting and a good topic of discussion for us. The last thing I wanted to share is if you're not part of the AAAE conference committee for the Houston conference, it's not too late to get involved. There's lots of different tracks. Just make sure to contact AAAE and let them know of your interest. I think the message is the more the merrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Danette. If there are no other comments on AAAE, let's go right into committee reports. Can we have the committee chairs in the room? Yes. Start with Jennifer, then we'll go to Joe.
Okay, well, talk about a couple committees. Membership committee, it's right now me, myself, and I. So if you're interested in being involved in the membership committee, we're working on a specific initiative, and that's to review the bylaws and policy decisions as it pertains to both airport membership. There's two different categories. Should it be a single category? And if so, what would we be looking at in terms of changes to requirements in order to serve in a leadership capacity in the organization? So if you're interested at all in participating in that effort, we're looking to make a recommendation to the board by the April board meeting so that we can bring it to the general membership meeting in July. So that's one committee. Then on the accreditation side of things, our illustrious immediate past president, I believe, is going to be reaching out to those who are qualified to serve on the board of examiners. That would be anyone who's actively engaged still in the industry and is accredited. My term is up in May, and so typically we do reach out to those that are qualified within the chapter to see if there's interest. If not, I'm still going to do it, I think. Anyway, but just a FYI on that. And then last but not least, related to the accreditation committee, I'm looking to strengthen the ranks of mentors. So those of you that are accredited, I'm looking for folks that would be willing to help work one-on-one with candidates as they're preparing for the final interview. And as a heads up, I may seriously need to have people travel early to Vegas. I know how difficult that's going to be, but we potentially have a lot of candidates in the pipeline looking to sit for their final interview at that conference. So I will be reaching out to everyone who is qualified to be on a panel. That's it for my comments, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jennifer. Three of the four state legislatures are in session this year. Nevada is not. They're all just gone into session in the last few weeks, so there's a flurry of activity right now. A lot of bills are being introduced. Nothing bad has happened yet. Nothing good has happened yet. There is one bill in Arizona that would apply the existing school siting requirements for schools also to charter schools, and the SWAAAE board voted on Saturday to support that bill. It doesn't have a number yet, at least as of last Friday it didn't have a number. And as is looking at three other bills that is in the watch status, There will be a bill introduced in California to require the Board of Equalization to establish methods of tracking and reporting aviation fuel tax sales as a way of gaining information to try to convince the State Department of Finance that they actually are not in compliance with the FAA policy. Other than that, that's it. Questions?
Thank you. Gary?
Okay, I got nothing ethical to report in the Ethics Committee, so that's a good thing. I do want to talk about time and place, just to let everybody know a couple dates to pencil in. We have the next Board of Directors meeting in Henderson on April 1st. Everybody is more than willing to attend. It's open to the membership. We also have, obviously, the 70th annual summer conference in Henderson/Las Vegas. Thank you, Carrie. And those dates are July 24th to the 27th. The next exciting Monterey conference is January 30th, 2017 through February 1st, 2017. And then the new news is the 71st annual summer conference in 2017 will be at John Wayne Airport is hosting. So thank you, Barry Rondinello.
Any other committee chairs in the room that have anything to present? Nope. Alrighty. We will now ask our past president, Mr. Peterson, to come up and deliver the results of the election.
All right, folks. I know this has been a hotly contested debate, and folks in Iowa don't know what they're missing here. Yeah, and the hanging chads. Where's Chad? Are you hanging? So the AAAE Secretary Treasurer nominee will be Todd McNamee. Woo! Give it up for Todd. Where's Todd? There he is. And the AAA Director position is going to Scotty Malta. Woo, Scotty! That concludes my report.
I want to back up just 1 minute back to the committees. Jessica Bryan has served us faithfully and dutifully for many, many years and has asked respectfully to be replaced on the historical committee. So if you have an interest in doing that, get together with me after the meeting and I'll point you in the direction to where you can find out more about that position. With that, we are almost done. We'll open the floor up to member comments. Yes, sir. Why, great. Come on up. Everybody, Spencer Dickerson is here.
Since Hawaii, that seemed like ages ago. So good morning, everyone. I'm out here. I came out yesterday. We have our USCTA Policy Board meeting. See Scotty. Where's Danette? Danette's there. A couple others. So we're looking forward to being here in beautiful Monterey. We had our Snowzilla, Snow El Nino, whatever you want to call it, back in Washington, shut the government down 2 days. I know a lot of people think that's a great thing when the federal government shuts down. Kids were out of school for 7 school days. Pretty amazing. So it was quite a mess. So we're back up and running. So just quickly, I haven't looked at the whole bill, but Chairman Schuster of the T&I Committee introduced it about an hour and a half ago. The fireworks will begin. It's going to be a long process. He is going to have a hearing probably next week. He's doing a press conference in Washington. I think it's about over by now. And he'll have a hearing next week, and then they plan to mark it up in committee next Thursday. They go on recess the following week, so it could be on the House floor that week of February 22nd, 23rd, whatever that is. Then it moves to the Senate. Very unclear in the Senate. There is no champion in the Senate for this. What I'm talking about, of course, is the ATC Corporation, the transformational stuff that Schuster wants to do. There is no champion in the Senate. I think they'll be open to it. The thing that on the Senate side with the Commerce Committee is that it's made up a lot of rural senators. You know, South Dakota, Montana, Mississippi. They're going to care a lot about small communities, general aviation, rural America. So there is no champion in the Senate, so we'll see what happens there. If Schuster gets it out of the House, which I expect he will, you know, there'll be momentum for something to be done in the Senate. But it's very unclear. Certainly the Democrats in the Senate, don't have an appetite for ATC privatization. We'll see what the Republicans do. The appropriators on the House side and the Senate are lockstep against this proposal. You know, appropriators lose lots of jurisdiction in a privatized ATC corporation. And basically what Schuster's doing, I'm going to ramble a little bit here if you don't mind. So I don't have any notes, and again, we just saw it. And this has all been very close held by Schuster's people. So we really haven't had a whole lot of early information. But he's basically creating a nonprofit ATC corporation patterned after NAV Canada to operate the air traffic control system. The FAA safety function, the AIP program, would stay in FAA. So you're basically separating the regulatory functions of FAA from the operating functions of the air traffic control system. Republicans in general like that idea. Let's make it run more like a business. Schuster's going to say this is to protect the air traffic control system from the problems of Congress, the sequestration that we had 3 years ago that affected towers and furloughs of controllers. MBAA is very much against this proposal. We haven't seen any statements from them, but they're worried about the user fees to fund the air traffic control system. So is general aviation. My guess is they bought AOPA off. I mean, AOPA is the big 800-pound gorilla for Schuster on this. He obviously is going to take care of the airlines. That goes without saying. Schuster is very, very close to the airlines. And so the airlines are going to be taken care of. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. AOPA is an 800-pound gorilla. I'm assuming they got AOPA on board with some type of protection for GA, pure GA, recreational flyers in terms of user fees. The NATCA, the controllers union, is probably gotten taken care of somehow because that's such a big force in Washington. So the corporation, the board, a couple of things. The board, at least my reading, is heavy influence by the airlines. They've got, there's a CEO. There are 2 members of the board appointed by the Secretary of Transportation, 4 representing the airlines. So the airlines by far got the biggest SWAAAE in the board. 1 representation of, 2 for general aviation. So 4 airlines, 2 general aviation, 1 NATCA, and 1 ALPA. No airports on the board, which is obviously disappointing. There's an advisory board that talks about small community representation, but again, that's just advisory. The board itself doesn't have an airport person. Seems to me that the governance issue of that board is going to be very important politically in Washington. If it's perceived or spun or sold as this is an airline giveaway, and this is going to be controlled by the airlines, it seems to me they're going to have some problems with it. If you don't have the public interest represented, and that goes all the way down, up and down the food chain, and it's controlled by the airlines who will control the fees that people pay and will control the programs that this corporation will operate. Seems to me it's the airlines, they're beholden to their stakeholders. We know they want to cut fees and to the taxes to their passengers so they can pocket more money. So it's a heavy airline. We got 4 of the however many board members that is, 10. It's not majority, but it's certainly close to it. I think personally, I think, and I'm just speaking from AAAE, but personally, I think that's a problem. I think that needs to be looked at carefully as it moves through the process. The corporation to be up and running, I think it's 2019 or 2020, so there's a 3-year period that it'll get up and running. AIP stuff, it looks like he's increased AIP marginally from 3.35, increasing like $80 million a year.
and we understand that there's in the Ways and Means part, House Ways and Means does all the taxes, of course. In their part, there may be an inflationary adjustment for AIP, which won't be much because obviously inflation hasn't been much. But there is an increase on AIP. There is no PFC increase, and that shouldn't be a shock to anybody that's been following this. Obviously, that was a big part of our push from AAAE and ACI, but that's not in there. We don't know what will happen in the Senate. There is some streamlining on the PFC issue that some of the big airports will like in terms of making it more efficient. There's a lot of other cats and dogs on AIP. Airports have to have rooms for nursing moms, a bunch of other little things like that. So, some small community air service. So some good stuff on the AIP airport side. Certainly not great in terms of no PFC increase, but that was not in the cards from very, very early on in the process, at least in the House. Contracts tower stuff, I know a number of people care about that. Some good stuff there. First on the benefit cost reforms. FAA will not be allowed to run a BC on any airport unless their traffic drops by more than 25% in a single year or 60% over 3 years. So that means for 90-95% of the contract towers, you won't have BCs done, which is great because that's been a major challenge for the last 10 or so years. The bill also includes costs that FAA can include or that only can include, so it limits those costs. Remember, FAA has been wanting to put in airway facilities costs, want to put in depreciation. If you built the tower, they want to put those depreciation costs in the cost side of the BC, which is crazy. Those are local costs. Why is that in the BC? So they limit the cost of controller costs, FAA's telecommunications costs. If FAA buys equipment for the tower, those costs would be in the BC, which is fair because those costs wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the tower. And then travel costs for any FAA tech personnel to maintain equipment owned by FAA in your tower. A lot of towers do their own equipment and maintain, but if you have FAA equipment, the travel costs. That was a sticky point the last couple of weeks. We were working with the House side because they wanted to keep including the word maintain in there in terms of costs, and that's a very slippery slope. FAA can throw a lot of funny numbers in that. So no airway facilities costs, no depreciation, no local janitorial utility costs if you pay for those at towers. So that's really good in terms of the BC. Also adds 10 points to the percentages. So if you're in the cost share program, the most you would pay is 10% of the tower. So that's a cost savings for airports in the program. Protection of the contract tower program, that's the weakest part of what's in the House bill. We've been arguing, of course, that it should be a local airport decision. If the corporation wanted to close Phoenix Goodyear, which is operated by the airport by the city of Phoenix, it would be Chad and Bennett deciding whether that was appropriate. So our position has been, if the corporation wants to close any towers, it would be the decision of the local airport to close them. That is not in the House bill. They did, though, include a bunch of processes if the corporation wants to close a tower. And we got a special carve-out. I've been told by the TNI staff we're the only group that got a special carve-out in terms of protection of the corporation. They have to go through a safety risk management assessment. They got to do an impact on air service. They got an impact on national local airspace, impact of the military, national security. So there's a lot of hoops the corporation has to go through, and then there's a process for airports to comment, local airspace users. So that's good, but it's not ironclad. It's not definitive. So we're going to keep pushing for that in the Senate and throughout the process, but at least it's better than the corporation just on its willy-nilly deciding to close any towers. They lifted the cap on AIP for construction of contract towers. Currently it's $2 million. They lifted the cap, so that's good for airports that want to use their entitlements or state apportionment to build towers or equip towers. So that's sort of the basis of what I was able to glean in the half hour that the damn thing's been out, and there's 800 pages. Any questions? Hi.
Thank you. And then, so I want to protest to our House members, A, and B, don't you think we should protest to AOPA, those of us who are members, which is almost everyone in the room, I'm sure?
Yeah, I would, you'll be getting, all the AAA members will be getting a detailed email sometime today with a summary of the bill. Brad is working on that now. So I'd wait till you get that. You know, your protesting is over what part?
Well, the part that separates the AIP from the other part? Yes? And the part that AOPA is supporting this when we probably wouldn't want them to?
Well, I don't know whether AOPA is supporting it. You know, this just got released.
Okay.
And this has been very, very close help by Schuster and his people. I mean, I've been involved in the discussions with their staff on the contract tower stuff. I got to tell you, they've been very sensitive because a lot of you got your members of Congress talking directly to Schuster about this the last several weeks, and that's come through. So they're very sensitive to us on that, but they quite frankly haven't been talking to a lot of groups. So we just have to wait to see when the summary comes out. You're going to see lots of statements. Oh my gosh, Washington's going to be full of statements. Okay. Washington's going to be full of statements from different groups opposing or supporting it. So, you know, each individual has to make a decision about, you know, contacting members of Congress. You know, the way the House works, you know, pretty much you can, in the T&I committee particularly, if the chairman's going to get the bill through some way, somehow. I mean, if the appropriators all stayed against him on the Republican side. The other thing I didn't mention, we don't know where the Democrats are. This is not, right now, it's not a bipartisan bill. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff from Peter DeFazio, who's the ranking Democrat on the Transportation Committee. He has his own version, so he'll put it out there. But of course, the House, you know, is pretty much when you're in the majority, you can do anything you want. Senate, completely different story. So that's where we are. So don't quote me on anything I said here, because I think you said Brad just said something out. So he's been back in Washington, and I've just been looking at my iPad and looking at the bill. So at least the process has started, and that's good. But it's going to be a long, long process. I guess they'll have to extend FA again, because right now it's extended to the end of March, and it's not a lot of time. They don't have, Congress doesn't have a lot of time on their schedule. They don't get this done in March, April, May. There's no time. You got the conventions in the summer, so they're out for that. You got the appropriations process that takes center stage, so not a lot of time. But that's sort of my quick reading. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Spencer. We'll expect you to come to every general membership meeting now. Yeah. All right, thanks again. Are there other member comments from the floor? Yes. Yeah, thanks, Gladys. Are you waving, or are you saying, yeah? Good to go. All right. Okay, well, here, yes, right here.
Rick from Fresno, if you don't know me. If SWAAAE's looking for a project, I kind of walked around last night and asked people about it. I think a compensation study might be pretty good and help us out. Not just for the airport managers, but possibly the white-collar support staff. Most of us work in government. We have to deal with HR, and they don't have a clue about airports. And so just an idea, but if SWAAAE's interested, I think it would be a good regional area to spearhead. So that's it.
Great. That'll make a good discussion point for our next board meeting. Maybe we can take down or talk about a parity study.
Mr. President. So Spencer confirmed that anybody who is sticking around is more than welcome to attend the Contract Tower meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Okay, great. Scotty. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, for those that don't know, they did this all through sponsorship, and so this is going to kind of float over into their sponsorship for summer too. So yeah, huge improvement Nothing but great comments all week long about it, so I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. I think I saw a hand over here. No other member comments? Okay, then I would call for a motion to adjourn. Scotty, second. All in favor, say aye. All right, don't forget we have the conference committee meetings that will be starting right now. So there'll be 2 tables. Where's Carrie? Summer conference meeting at Carrie's table right here, and a winter conference. Winter conference will be the other table with people at it. Thank you.